Hello, welcome to this week's episode of What One Thing, One Business, One Story, and One Lesson to take away in action every week for small business owners looking to grow. I'm Hayley Baxter.
And I am Phil Davenport, and today we have the pleasure of talking to Jojo Smith. Now, Jojo Smith is care experienced and your go-to girl for magnetic motivation and inspiration. With her infectious, sassy personality and nurturing approach and her 25 plus years of brand and business development expertise is laced with unconventional, joyous moments. Jojo is not just a great speaker, she's an experience. Direction and connection guaranteed. Picture lively, bold, full of spirit, a little bit cheeky, and a whole lot of spirit-lifting magic. Jojo is the sassy, not soury spark of life that your business needs in place at the beginning, after lunch, or at the end of an event, wherever she is. The energy ignites. Jojo has taken a spirited approach across the globe to staged events of all sizes, including serving as an ambassador and MC hosting for renowned brands and organisations. Her lively engagements include the Hollywood Improv Stage, West Midlands Police, Acorns Hospice, Book Your Pet, the Big Festival, and we go on. There are literally hundreds of them. So, let us begin.
Welcome, Jojo. Thank you for joining us today. Take us back a little bit of your business journey. What was going on in your business that led you up to your What One Thing moment?
Hello, welcome. Oh God, I'm used to doing podcasts myself. Hello and welcome. Hello. First of all, thank you for having me on. My mum always taught me to say thank you when I was invited round for tea. So I'm definitely going to say thank you to you guys for having me here today. So the one thing that has now become my sole focus in business is brand. Brand, not branding. There is a difference. There is a huge difference. And when you really take hold of how important your brand is within your business, then everything changes, everything. And that one thing for me was when everything changed for me. And within business, I have to say that I did realise this very, very, very early on. So within the first 3 months of my business, most people don't actually get to this point till quite late on, when they've already dressed themselves in branding for a business they didn't really understand the brand of, if that makes sense. So brand for me was the one thing.
Okay, so that it sounds really good that you realised it early in the journey, as you've just said, so often people don't. So what were the things that led up to that point where you realised it?
So there's a whole story here. First things first, can I give a little education around brand and branding, just so that people understand the difference? So the difference is, and I like to describe it in a way of, everybody's really out there going, I need my branding. Okay, that's the pretty pictures. But how I describe brand and branding is, brand is the naked business, the naked person. So let's talk values, beliefs, personality. The branding is the clothes that you put on that person or on that business. Now, most people dress before they even understand who the person is. So you've only met me for 2 minutes, but can you imagine putting me in a grey pinstripe suit and all stiff collared, white starched jacket or shirt? I'm not going to perform at my best. I'm not going to have the best energy. And you're certainly not getting a fair representation of who I actually am from a values, belief, personality point of view. When you build branding, it needs to grow with you. It needs to grow for where that business can go. Now, when I started, I stepped out, as I like to call it, as Businessman Jeff. Businessman Jeff showed up in the shoulds and not the coulds of how I could show up in my branding. So it was very corporate. It was very dull, for want of a better word, because I didn't think that anybody would take me seriously if I showed up as pink, sparkly, sassy, vivacious Jojo. Because stepping into a CEO world and being a founder of a business, I was very much, like I say, sitting in the shoulds. I should show up like this. I should do this. Society tells me I should do this. Nobody will take me seriously. Literally starting out in that, I had a very early on conversation with somebody, a business mentor who's now actually one of my best friends, Dani Wallace. I don't know if you've ever heard of her. She's a speaking coach. She's got a big community called the IATQB Hive. And I actually went for this very first initial meeting with Dani because I'd watched her be real AF, for want of a better word. That's what had really drawn me to her. Anyway, I had a meeting with her and she said to me, Jojo, show me what you've got. And I put my business card on the table, the Jeff business card, businessman Jeffs. By the way, no Jeffs were hurt in the making of this brand or anything else. But I put my business card in front of her. And as I put it down, I said to her, this is what I've got, but it's not really me. Knowing that as I said that was just crazy. Dani stopped me and she went, Jojo, I've known you for 2 seconds. You're pink, you're sparkly, you're leopard print. What on earth is this? She said, what made you successful in your previous career? And I'd been extremely successful working with the likes of Amazon, MTV, National Television Awards. And for that moment, I stopped for a minute because somebody asked me a question that I actually took the time to actually think about. And I was like, it was my personality. And then in that moment, it was like, what am I doing? What am I doing showing up as Jeff? They're going to have the shock of their life if they're thinking they're getting businessman Jeff and then I rock up. It's trades description. For one, it's not going to work. There's going to be no connection. So in that moment, it was almost like, Jojo, you've just got to be you 110%. It's very hard to be. You'd think it would be the easiest thing in the world to be yourself, right? But it's not. It's very hard. It takes a lot of inner belief. It takes a lot of confidence to actually just rock up exactly as how you are. But that is your USP. That your brand, your values, your beliefs, your personality is the only thing that will make you stand out in the crowd and be different and draw the people that you actually want to work with. So in that moment, I'd made this whole really big investment in my business. I'd spent £30 on some business cards from Vistaprint. It took me a week to decide if I was going to invest £30 in my business at the very beginning. So I threw those business cards in the bin and was like, right, let's do this properly. Let's do this with real intention. Let's be exactly who I am, anchor it, amplify it. And from that moment, the business took off because the connection and the direction of where I was heading and my business was heading was so clear because all I had to do was be me and trust in my own values, beliefs, personality and purpose. And since then, it's been an absolute game changer. But I'm not talking about your branding, even though that's where it started. It was the brand. I needed to dress the business for how and who I knew that business could be. And I'm talking big vision, big bold.
I think there's so many things in what you've just said. I'm just trying to take a minute to think about where to start. So I think it's it's a great what one thing because it is really important on the business journey, particularly if you do have big ideas. And I think there's something about vulnerability for me in all of that. What do you think, Phil?
I think you've been on a spectacular journey, and let's put that lightly. I think, and I'm just trapping this back to maybe Jeff with ribbons, because you, Jojo, are, as you say, an experience. So I'm thinking for the majority of business owners, they wouldn't actually have the idea to reach out to a big speaker and say, could I have a one-to-one? They will normally head to a network meeting. And because I'm IT, I went onto ChatGPT and said, what does an IT business owner look like with my description, etc., etc. And I was kind of quite happy with jeans and a shirt, if I'm honest with you, Jojo. I'm not going to lie. Maybe I am Jeff. So I suppose for someone who's, and I think, and this is my honest opinion, I hope this doesn't go down badly, I think that most people will look to put a sprinkle of Jojo onto their business as opposed to be the full 110%. What would you say to somebody who is going to network meetings, maybe looking to stand out, but maybe not looking to give the full extrovert performance, should we say? How would they go on this journey, and what would be the moments that they'd come to realise that maybe they do need to stand out more or be themselves more?
For starters, I have to absolutely say that if you are jeans and a shirt, or if you are Jeff, and that is authentically, wholeheartedly, unapologetically you, then that's who you need to be. Nobody needs to be more Jojo. There's only one Jojo, and there's only one Phil, and there's only one Hayley. The question is, are you owning all of those absolutely exemplary parts of you that actually make you that independent person that person wants to work with? You will have a complementary skill set of life skills that only you have been through, the same as me. Now, you could describe me as an extrovert. I'm kind of like an extrovert introvert, believe it or not. But all I've done is amplified my strengths. When we amplify out, don't get me wrong, I own all of my weaknesses. I have a complete wonky crown. I use kisses as full stops. I'm shocking at grammar. I'm ADHD, and I've got a menno brain that a lot of women can actually really resonate with. So there's a lot of wonkiness that goes on there, but owning the parts of you that are your sheer brilliance is what you need to do. So when you say to me, what would I say to anybody going to a network meeting? I would say, own your complementary skill set, own what you are really, really good at. My personality has been a huge part, but most people go, oh, I haven't got a personality like you, Jojo. I'm not as bubbly as you, Jojo. I'm not as great as you. But I'm like, okay, but what are you? For argument's sake, I had someone at a big speaking event that actually at the end of the event turned around and said to me, Jojo, I've got nothing from that talk because I'm not like you. I am sarcastic. I am direct. I am this. And I was like, well, okay. Now, that person had been told that they were sarcastic all of their life. But actually, what they were, when we did a recce around the room of people that had worked with that person, their perception of her was that she was actually hilarious. She was witty. But she had focused on the negative part of saying she was sarcastic. But she was so quick-witted, so quick-witted. People loved her for that. There needed to be a reframe in that because it was ownership of actually that she was quick-witted and she was direct and she was very honest. Those people that wanted to work with that kind of person then flocked to her because she owned that. But quite often we sit in the negative narrative of our head. So at school, I was told I talked too much. I was too bossy. What am I now? I'm a creative director and I'm a motivational speaker. If I'd have owned that back then and through life, I would have known where my skill set lay. Does that make sense, what I'm saying?
It does. It does, and I think it's great advice, and it definitely does make a difference on the journey of business. But for somebody who isn't like you and who doesn't know themselves that well, or who doesn't, for most of life, we're just figuring out every day as we go through it, aren't we? Like that, well, that's me anyway. And actually, to really be honest and truthful, showing up in that way, you do have to know yourself really well. And a lot of people don't, and a lot of people don't take the time to do it. A lot of people don't know how to do it because, I don't know what I want. That's kind of what goes on in your head. So what would you say to somebody that was trying to go on that journey or to figure it out?
You've hit the nail on the head. My company is called CreativeSAS for a reason, because I believe the three things that are the absolute life hack and business hack is creativity, self-awareness, and strategy. When you bring those three things together, you're 600% more likely to outperform, to overperform, to just basically success is 600% more likely. When you bring creativity into your business, 500% more likely. When you bring self-awareness, 79% I think it is to be more successful. When you bring strategy, it's like 39% or whatever. So that's what CreativeSAS stands for: creativity, self-awareness and strategy. There's a statistic: 95% of the population think that they are self-aware. Only 15% actually are. So when you actually say not many people know who they are, that's where the problem lies. And it's about taking that time to take a step back, to actually understand who you are, what makes you up. Because when you say to people in their business, okay, tell me your values. This is a quick win for me when I'm speaking to people. Tell me your values in your business. Most people, and I work with micro businesses and multi-million-pound businesses as well, most of them go, hold on a minute, let me just have a look. They don't intrinsically know their values. And when you don't know your values, how can you make those big decisions based on those values? How can you create that connection? So my direction would always be take a stop. And when we stop, we go faster, right? Because when you take a pause, you can actually go faster because you're actually getting clarity and, crystal clear direction on what you need to do. So you need to take that time back to actually go and look and know and figure out who the F you are. And when I say who the F you are, I mean who the future you could be. Because if you hone into that and you amplify that, so it's not about being more Jojo, it's about being more you, but actually doing the work to figure out who you are. When you bring that into your brand, everything opens up. Your messaging, your content, your hiring, your firing, your services, where that business is going to go, because it's intrinsic and it just makes your business so much more scalable to understand that.
Yeah. So give me 3 things that I could do today to help me understand me.
Okay. So quick Wins. This is a good one. You're putting me on the spot now, right? So for both of you, I would say, and this is always a really uncomfortable question for people, tell me your three most favourite things about yourself. Now, this is where ownership comes in and people go, oh,
Okay.
I know what I don't like about myself. I would want to know your three favourite things about you and take ownership of those. The next one is understand maybe text. This is a bit like Michael McIntyre when he says text all. Don't text all, text three people that you really trust and value their opinion and have some depth to them. Because with your brand and finding out who you are, it's about going lower than surface level, if that makes sense. So ask the question, tell me three things that you would say to me about my personality. How would you describe my personality in 3 words? Then take those 3 words, put them into AI. AI is a great tool, but only when you give it great direction. Put those into AI and then say, give me other words that mean these words. Because for argument's sake, sassy not sorry is my hashtag. Sassy to some people is a negative word, but actually the dictionary definition actually stands for lively, bold, full of spirit, and a little bit cheeky. It's exactly who I am. So words mean different things to different people. So take those 3 words that they send to you, put them into AI and say, what are the definitions of these words and what are other words that describe this? You'll find out a little bit more about yourself because you'll connect to something that you want to own. It equally makes you stand out as you. Third one, learn to love yourself a little bit more. Learn to love yourself a whole lot more, because if you don't love you, sounds very cliche, then nobody else is going to. Take ownership in that loving your best bits, but owning the bits that aren't as good. I hope that helps.
Oh, I loved it. I'll be honest, the third point reminds me of RuPaul, with a bit of, anybody out there who's a massive RuPaul fan, and who isn't a RuPaul fan, if you can't love yourself, how the hell's somebody else going to do it? I think that 3 people that you really trust to tell you 3 things about your personality, that to me, and I'm a man of infinite bravery, let's just put that out there, but that is a very bold question, isn't it? That requires a lot of confidence to kind of pull together there, which I suppose is where peer groups and things can kick in, so that you can have that, I'm going to use the word intimacy, and maybe it's the incorrect word, but that level of open honesty. But I think those points are really bob on, to be fair, just as life lessons. I suppose where I'm always trying to get to is what's the trigger for this? What's the reason? Because you said that you learned it and you spoke to, I think, as I say, you reaching out to a speaker and having that meeting, and that, I think most business owners would never dream of, I suppose in IT, would to reach out to Bill Gates or somebody the equivalent. I don't think I ever would. I'd just go to local network meetings, maybe a flipping the Midlands network meeting, because I think that was a bit more big time. What made you think, I'm going to reach out to a mentor and I'm going to kind of take it to this level? Or what brought you to that point where you just went, do you know what, I'm going to try and rock it here? Or maybe not try,
so
I'm going to rock it here.
Exactly that. With intention, success happens. That's one of my sayings. It's about, lots of people say, I wish I could do this. I wish I could be that. I wish that person would stop doing this. Well, my acronym for the word wish stands for with intention, success happens. If you say, I wish I want to do something, you absolutely can, but you've got to have intention for that and you've got to take action. So I always say that you can't be what you can't see. And when I saw somebody who was like, she's actually a celebrity speaker coach, Dani is. And when I saw somebody that was doing motivational speaking and speaking as a job, every day you get to do that job, be with those people, that was a unicorn job for me. And I was like, oh my God, this actually happened. Like, this is actually a thing. And I thought, so I started to follow her and see, okay, well, what is this about? And she was so real. And I used to call her she was effing and jeffing like the next person. She definitely wasn't Jeff, even though she was effing and jeffing. She was just real, very, very real. And that for me was inspirational. And that for me was like, you can't be what you can't see. There's my unicorn. I always say to people, go find your unicorns in order for you to be your own unicorn. So in that moment, it was a bold move, but remember, sassy, lively, bold, full of spirit, a little bit cheeky. It's about, you could say, if you don't ask, you don't get. And Dani's actually got a book. I feel like I'm promoting Dani, which is absolutely fine because she's my best mate. But she's got a book that's called Closed Mouths Don't Get Fed. They don't, right? So we connected on a level in those aspects. Now, just because I'm bubbly and Dani was effing and jeffing and being bold doesn't mean you have to go and be that. You need to go and be you. But like I said, that's taking ownership in exactly who you are. For me, being care experienced was always about never really belonging anywhere. I was in care from 18 months through to 18 years, foster care, children's home, and being a young carer for my mum. She had MS. So never really belonging. It was, I'd spent many, many years dulling my sparkle, dulling it down to actually people please and everything else. It's quite a classic cliche. It's not new news. You know, there's a lot of people that have done that. But when I saw somebody being themselves, that was instantly inspirational to me. And I was like, right, okay, I'm going to try this. But I wasn't being myself in the business aspect because I had very little confidence in being a CEO. I was a Brummie bird. I was really curvy. I used kisses as full stops. I'd got this dodgy accent. I'd done shocking at school. My grammar was terrible. How was I going to be a CEO of a business? I wasn't qualified on paper. But actually, 25 years of business development experience working with phenomenal brands, that's what qualified me. I'm also ADHD, which I didn't actually know back then. So, but, you know, put all the bricks in place then after that. But I had to learn to love myself first. And yes, it's a RuPaul thing. But I ended up writing a book called Loving Yourself Beyond Belief because that was the first step. Let me give everybody a little bit of advice. So most people in business want the business development, right? And you'll see I point to the top of the screen because it's like a celebration cake, a 3-layer cake. The top of that cake is business development. You get to sit on the top and have your cake and eat it lifestyle. Once you've built that business, you've got a growing business, you've got a great community, clients you love, staff and team. Business development, you're sitting on the top of the cake. Underneath that next layer is brand. But to have business development, it has to be held up by brand. It absolutely has to be. That's your next layer. But the foundational layer underneath that is belief. If you haven't got belief in yourself, if you do not love yourself enough to know that you are capable and take ownership, you will never make it past that second layer. Business development, held up by brand, held up by belief. Brand
That's
strategy,
great.
sorry.
No. Carry on.
Has got 3 dimensions to it: foundations, positioning, execution. You've absolutely got to hone into those 3 aspects. And your foundation is your belief, it's your naked personality, it's your values, because nothing else is scalable. Nothing else, like, it's not sustainable. It's flipping exhausting trying to be somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
You absolutely own it. That's the key. The brand is the key.
It is. I think that everything you've just said there is really useful advice, and it's very true. So I'm gonna take it back to the just qualified accountant working in corporate world, suited, booted, wanting to start their own business, to that person, the steps they need to take because they're not a suited and booted person, let's say, the steps they need to take are a great place for them to start, because they probably know in themselves that they're not being true to themselves by showing up in a suit every day. So there's a niggle inside. The next step for them to do would be those 3 things that you shared earlier, which is a great first realization of who you are, and it's starting that journey, isn't it, of realization or getting to know yourself more. And then I'm guessing a good next step would be to reach out to Jojo for some inspiration. So on that note, do you want to do a shameless plug, Jojo, and tell people who you work with, who your ideal client is, and how they can connect with you?
Okay, so I feel like now I've got to go into a pitch mode, which is I'm Jojo Smith. I work a brand and vision expert. I work with micro and multi-million pound businesses and starters as well. And those people that might just have a little inkling of a whisper that they actually want to start their own business and make impact. If you feel like you want to make influence, impact and income, then absolutely give me a shout out. I have services and resources for all accessibility, all budgets, because I always wanted it to be, you could, if you see a unicorn, you're like, how am I going to get there? Come and speak to me. We've got the first steps. But my shameless plug would be, I am a speaker. However, my brand and vision agency is the first place to start. I have recently, last year, started a program called Room 202. Everybody remembers Frank Skinner and Room 101, right? It's where you put all the has-beens, all the things you don't like. This is polar opposite. This is a brand recovery or brand start aspect. It's a 12-month program, 2 hours a month, because we don't have much more than 2 hours a month as an entrepreneur, as an independent business owner. However, if you are not maintaining your brand and your vision in your business, it's like your car or your house. It's going to come falling down. So 2 hours a month minimum on your brand or vision. Room 202 is that program, and 2 hours a month for 12 months. It takes minimum of 3 years to build a brand where you start to get hell yeses and where you start to have your ideal clients. The reason I started Room 202 is because I wanted to have that length of time with people, to be able to get them to actually create the brand and build it, not just do their branding. So we work on everything from brand belief, brand personality. Sorry, I'm taking too long. Room 202, come and find me.
No, it's fine. It's absolutely fine. I was just going to say, and just include where people can connect with you.
So if you want to come and follow CreativeSAS, then please come and find me at CreativeSAS, which is CreativSAS, no E in creative. On the website, we are www.creativesas.co.uk. On Instagram, I'm CreativeSAS. On Facebook, I am Jojo Smith, and also on LinkedIn, I am CreativeSAS as well. So come and find me. Come and let's have an experience together. But most of all, please go ahead, be sassy, not sorry, and be yourself.
Thank you so much, Jojo.
Jojo absolutely lived up to her billing. She was legitimately an experience. She is an absolute bundle of positive energy. From that, Hayley, what did you take as your key takeaway?
Thought that it was really good that Jojo is so passionate about knowing yourself and being yourself in business, because I do think that it's very easy to hide behind a mask or turn up how you think you should turn up to events and things in a stereotypical way. And I say that coming from, obviously I'm an accountant, and when I meet people at networking events, probably the thing that people say to me most, if I had £1 for every time I heard this, I would be very, very rich, is, oh my God, you don't look like an accountant. So I choose to take that in a positive light rather than a negative light. But I just think it's interesting how we do hide behind it a little bit sometimes. And I think it was so great that Jojo's whole ethos is to just embrace who you are. What do you think?
I took a few notes down because Jojo was a bundle of energy. And I think the biggest takeaway for me, and I'm trying to put this into a positive light, was that the things that she asked us to do are well and truly outside of my comfort zone. So in my comfort zone, if you said to me, there's a 6'2" bloke in the gym, you've got to spar him, I think, well, I'm out of shape, but okay, I can do that. If you said to me, I need to go down and speak to whoever, I could do that. But to say what your 3 favourite things about you, reach out to 3 people that you really trust and ask them for the 3 things they say about your personality. They were a couple of points that I thought, do you know what, that I don't know if I can do that, which puts a real question mark over me, and that's going to be a real thinker, because we are British, and as Jojo said, we've been trained throughout school, throughout everything, to be modest, align with the system, and to keep ourselves kind of on the standard practice. And I also loved, and it's Muhammad Ali, you can't hit what you can't see. Jojo, you can't be what you can't see. And the way that she immediately reached out to somebody who's doing really well in our industry and said, I presume you're doing really well, I'd love to get some hints and tips off you. I thought, again, massively, I don't know if you're allowed to say ballsy, but all those for me were her 3 points. So 3 favourite things about yourself, 3 people with 3 opinions about your personality, and then reach out to somebody who's already done what you've done and just drop them a message and say, can we have a chat? I'm really in admiration of you, or whatever you'd like to say. I thought those 3 real key takeaways for me.
I think you've summarised that really, really, really well. And I think what's really interesting is that I totally agree with you. It'd be like torture, me doing those 2 things or 3 things, whatever they are. It would literally be like torture. But actually, if somebody else asked me, I would be like so willing. I'd just be like, oh yeah, well you're like this, you're like that, you're amazing. You know, like I would just like be. And isn't it funny how that when it's the other way round, you're like, oh my God, no, not at all.
I think it must be a very much a personality trait, and I have no idea which of my multiple personalities it must be a trait of. But whether it's insecurities, fear of rejection, I don't know. But it must be something that, and it must be common, because otherwise, well, I've not received many people asking me to give them feedback on their personality.
No, I think it's anyway, I think one thing that Jojo has definitely done, it's made us think. So on that note, thanks so much for joining us. We hope you have found one thing to help move your business forward.
And if you did, please do us a favour, share this episode with someone else who's on the same journey, and we'll see you all next time on What One Thing.